All right, looks like we're live. Let me yep, everything's working. Display is all good. All right, so I didn't get to stream yesterday, and this is the makeup stream. Just if anyone was wondering why I wasn't there, I was just too tired yesterday, and I figured I could just make up for it tonight. Today we talk about, I don't know if he's my favorite writer, but he's definitely up there. There's just something so special about William Blake's poetry. There's something so inspiring. He cuts through the nonsense. There's a weight to his words that carries much more than most poets. He uses imagery to kind of force you to the conclusion, whereas other poets kind of dance around it and try to inspire you. But Blake, to me, tries to get to the bare bones of existence and realign you with what's really important, realign you with your greatest power, which is your attention, your imagination, your capacity to be unbounded, except for the fact that you impose self-limiting beliefs, more or less. But you know, if you don't know who William Blake is, you might know this book. This is The Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley. Very, very famous book. But Huxley begins this book with a William Blake quote, and the quote is, "The doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite." William Blake. And the quote continues something along the lines of, "But man sees," how do I completely butcher this. "For man only sees through narrow chinks of his cavern," or something like that. Something along the lines of that. But more or less what he's trying to say is that humanity is limitless, but we choose to see the world in a certain way. We choose to believe certain things. We choose to define ourselves by the world standards and not by our own standards. And really the greatest part about William Blake is his undying belief in the human imagination, his undying belief in creativity. And I mean, while he was alive, he was seen as crazy, but now he's seen as one of the greatest poets who ever lived. Huxley was a huge fan of him.
Into the grey and growing sprawl of London. The world he entered was one of shifting certainties. The
This
old
is
gold
Pantheon mythology, by the way. I've watched this video before. It's a really good video. I don't think I reacted to it on stream though, but I did learn a lot from this video.
gods had been quieted, the scriptures pinned down in print, and across Europe a new order was rising, the Enlightenment. The universe, once seen as alive with angels and demons, was now a system of
So Blake is known as a romantic poet. I'm not sure if he's gonna he might say this, but basically romanticism is a push against enlightenment, a push to the less scientific aspect of humanity, a push to the more creative, the more imaginative. And Blake in a lot of his writings kind of denounces Isaac Newton, and it's so funny because Isaac Newton was just as wacky as William Blake. I mean, the guy wrote a third of his writing about alchemy, so it's like 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 Blake is denouncing Newton as the spawn of uh, strict doctrinal beliefs. Meanwhile, meanwhile, like Newton probably would agree with a lot of Blake's writings.
forces, equations, and natural laws. Newton's mechanics explained the heavens, Bloch redefined the mind, science had replaced mystery, rationalism was now king.
Science, like prior to, I don't know if this is exactly when it shifted, but science used to be like for the glory of God, we'll say, like to prove God's existence or to somewhat make sense of order and God's way of things. But now it seems like it's kind of tried to replace it. That like there's this weird belief that like if we come up with all the scientific answers that have ever been posed, then maybe we'll have some purpose to go on living. I mean, that's like Neil deGrasse Tyson's entire existence. But what's up, X before YZ? How's everything, man?
But Blake never bowed to that order. From an early age, he claimed to sense things no one else could, experiences that don't align with doctrine or science, strange impressions, unseen presences. His earliest years were shaped by encounters that would stay with him for life. Whatever he witnessed, it left him convinced that the world most people saw was only half the truth, and that something deeper, older, and more
Dude, I haven't streamed since on Friday. You're good. I've been busy too. I took a few days off. I didn't even post a video. Like that's I wouldn't say that I couldn't. I definitely could have, but like I don't know, it felt good to take a break for a few days because sometimes like if I try to put out a video every single day, like it's a fun thing to do. It's a fun thing to come up with an idea to talk about. I love making videos, but sometimes it's like it's not like that you don't want to do it. It's just that like you feel like if you took a step back and then came back, it would just be much easier to go at it. That's kind of how um I viewed it. I'm good. Yeah, I'm pretty good too. Uh, a lot of stress off my plate. Um, yeah, I got a lot more free time now, so you'll see more of me. I don't know if that's what you want to hear, but
dangerous was hidden behind it. His family was working class, and education was limited. He didn't attend school. Instead, he was taught to read and write at home by his mother, just enough to open the Bible.
Blake pretty much only studied the Bible. And you can really see the influence in all of his writings because he uses biblical symbols and biblical ideas and the same kind of weighty language. Like when I try to write something, I try to emulate Blake, but I can't. I haven't absorbed the Bible as much as him, so I can't emulate the same kind of distinctness and the same kind of definitiveness, and doesn't have the same air of as if this was like an eternal proclamation.
And that was all he needed. At 10, he was sent to Henry Parser's drawing school. By 14, he was apprenticed to the engraver James Baziah. It was a pivotal match. Blake's hands were trained in precision, in line and texture, but he wasn't
You have a few events and exams in March. What do you have?
copying the world. He was learning how to carve another one into it. Even then, his imagination followed a different path. While others studied commerce or craft, Blake was drawn to something else. Call it vision, call it madness. He spoke of great figures watching over him, of truth hidden behind appearances, of symbols that moved.
Dude, this guy's voice is so it's so pleasing. I wish I could speak like this.
His mind lived in image, intensity,
This guy should be like on a one of those like nature documentaries. He has one of those voices.
and collision, and everything he would later become began here, in the quiet intensity of his training, as he prepared to give form to the things he could not yet name. His adult life was spent on the margins. His engravings were technically admired, but his poetry was mocked or ignored. His books, songs of innocence and experience, the marriage of heaven and hell, Jerusalem, were strange, symbolic.
What's up, Tech Light? How's everything, man? Good to see you here. Damn, I lost my train of thought. But Blake, I don't know if I skipped over the part, but Blake famously saw angels in the trees and told people about it, and they were like, "What is up with this guy?" And really, he was just supported by like a small number of patrons his entire life, and like kind of dismissed while he was alive. I mean, obviously, people knew of him, and these are great engravings. It is interesting art, but I mean, I guess it just wasn't accepted at the time. But it's nice to know that he has been appreciated for what he is, and there's a fine line between genius and crazy, and which one Blake was, I don't know. But this is a quote that Carl Jung said about James Joyce. because Joyce was very concerned for his daughter, and he took her to all these doctors, and a lot of people thought she was crazy, and Young believed her to be, and Joyce didn't, and she was doing all this wordplay and all these weird things, and Young basically said like, yeah, it's fine for you to do these things, because you have your art, and without your art, you'd be crazy, but she doesn't have that. It's such a funny, to me, that's just the funniest story is like Young's telling Joyce that, if you weren't such a highly respected artist, I would find you to be absolutely mad. But he also said that Joyce might operate at a level of sanity that is so sane that we think it's insane. Because I think this was Freud that said this, but he basically said that everyone has some form of neurosis. Everyone has some form of issues, and it's like you'll never be rid of them, but you can kind of learn to deal with them.
Out of step with fashion, few bought them, fewer understood them. He survived through private commissions and the support of a handful of devoted patrons, but his name never found a firm place among the cultural elite of Georgia
Even today, he's not like obviously he's well known in the spheres of poetry and romantic poets, but you know, you can't go to Barnes and Nobles and find his entire collection. You can maybe find Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience, which is his most well-known work and maybe his most approachable, but it's not even close to his best. It's to me so far what I've read, his best is either Jerusalem or The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, and they're nowhere to be found. It's some of the finest writing I've ever read, but it's you could tell it's out there, and you could tell it's most people wouldn't grasp anything from it, and most people, in fact, would probably reject it. And that's certainly why Blake isn't known the way he should be.
in London. Still, he remained defiant. He believed the world had fallen under a spell of false order. He saw how religion had hardened into dogma, how science, for all its clarity, stripped the world of wonder. He believed humanity had been severed from something essential.
So Blake's big idea is that imagination is God, that God is expressing itself through your imagination. But when you fall victim to conformity, when you fall victim to other people's beliefs, and you don't do what's in your heart, you allow yourself to defeat yourself before you even began, those sorts of things, then you shun God. Essentially, is what Blake's all of Blake's writings kind of are centered on this idea. So just understand that for the context of the rest of the video. One of my favorite Blake quotes. I actually just put this in a poem I was writing before this, but I must create my own system or be enslaved by another man's. I think that's a quote to live by. I think that's perhaps some of the best sentiment that I've ever seen written anywhere, and it's so true because if you don't chart your own course, it will be charted for you. And the course that's going to be given to you by this world is going to be one that is hypocritical, one that is inauthentic, one that rewards cowardice, one that rewards shutting up and allowing things that aren't right to happen, and doing it for the good of your career, doing it for the good of the company, or doing it for your country. Like these are all beliefs that put you behind something else. And it's not in a noble way, it's in an unjust way. So what I imagine is because of God. I mean, more so that think of it like alignment. Think of it like you're more aligned. I mean, it's very simple but very hard to explain. So like in using your imagination, you have the power of God at your hand. That's what Blake would say. Seems like I can use that sentence to get away from almost everything. I mean, it's easier said than done though. Like imagine yourself. in your dream world. Like you had everything that you ever wanted, and your mind would immediately snap back and say, "No, you don't deserve that. No, you can't get this. No, you can't get this." And it's you're just instilling your same circumstance. This is like a very, I don't know how to explain this very simply. It's a very nuanced
a
idea.
connection to the eternal,
It seems so simple, but it's so difficult to explain. Like, how do we control our own thoughts? How do we get over the negative ideas that we hold about ourselves? How do we break the perception of our current version of ourselves to create a new one? That's sort of what Blake is almost Emersonian in a sense.
to vision, to truth. To most, William Blake was a minor poet with delusions of grandeur, but he didn't see himself that way. He was a messenger, and soon we'll see what that message actually was. He was 4, maybe 5 years old, when he claimed to see the face of God.
I don't know where I read this. Okay. Before I say this, I don't remember where I read this. I don't remember where I heard this. But there's something about your like pineal gland and how it retracts at like the age of like it's either 7 or 13, or maybe it's somewhere in between there. And that's why there's a lot of stories about kids kind of seeing ghosts and talking to ghosts and seeing things that adults can't see. It's because their pineal gland isn't yet retracted. Um, I I've never seen anyone else tie that together, but that's my take on it.
Not in a dream, but in broad daylight, looking through the window
You can't hear the video I'm playing. Why didn't you tell me that
of his
earlier?
home.
Can you hear it now?
He didn't say it resembled God,
Is that too loud?
he said it was God, a figure of blinding light and infinite gravity peering through the veil that separated this world from the next. It didn't need to speak. Its presence alone was enough to shatter
Is that better? Can you hear it now? You should have told me. I didn't know it was so low.
everything he'd been told was real. Most children might have cried or hidden,
Hold on.
but Blake didn't. He accepted it. That moment would define the rest of his life. From then on, he would live between two realities, the one everyone else agreed upon, and the
Okay, that's good now. I can raise it again. I don't know if you want to hear that, but
one he knew to be true. A few years later, he saw something even stranger.
just for future reference, if there's anything wrong, please tell me because I like I'll forget that I had a setting down or up and I'll just rip through it. So just don't feel ashamed to tell me I'm an idiot and I gotta fix something.
A tree, alive with light. Its branches were full of angels, beings with wings, faces, robes, and fire. They moved, watched, glowed. The entire tree shimmered as if lit from within by heaven itself.
And if you've seen any of Blake's engravings, you would almost say that like they carry this same kind of look to them. In that let me pull it up. So like they why is this not big? Oh my gosh. I This is the dumbest function ever. But you can see there it has like this almost eternal kind of feeling to it. It almost I really wish there was a way to put this into words. I can't find the words right now, but you know what I'm trying to say. There's something in these that carries so much more. Like they're weird, they're intense, there's something ethereal about it. Anyway, back to the video.
Blake described it plainly, no flourish, just fact. He saw it, and once you'd seen something eternal, you don't forget. You start wondering why others can't see it too. He tried to explain these experiences to the adults around him. Some believed him, most didn't.
I can imagine like one trying to explain that you're like, how do I tell somebody about this? And two, like if some kid's telling you they saw angels in a tree, like we're lucky Blake didn't get locked up, and we're lucky that we were able to read his writings. Because I feel like if he said this kind of stuff now, he would be put in a place where you don't get out of if you have these sorts of ideas, a mental institute or something.
Some urged him to stop. A few feared what he might become. But Blake never questioned what he saw, not once. They were glimpses of a reality deeper than the one around him, and they never stopped. As he grew older, the visions became more frequent, more articulate. He claimed to speak with angels, archangels, and the spirits of the dead.
Like this just sounds like every homeless person ever. Like it's so sad to say, it really is. Like,
He said he
but does this not sound like something like I don't know if I've told this story before, but I was at like Barnes and Nobles and like I don't mind talking to people. Like you could be weird, you could be crazy, you could be whatever. Just tell me something funny. This guy, there, I could tell right off the bat there was something off. Um, he seemed nice, he seemed okay, so I let him talk. He was telling me like demons were telling him to like shit his pants, and I'm like, dude, why are you like, why would you t like out of all the stories to tell me, you didn't have to tell me that detail, and like he didn't tell me he didn't do it. So like I mean, all power to you, man. If you turn your life around, good for you. But like, if I'm recounting my demonic possession, I'm not talking about that part. Like you don't have to tell me every detail. Like there's some things better left unsaid, you know.
received guidance from the Virgin Mary, conversed with the prophets of the Old Testament, and was visited by the souls of poets and saints. He didn't consider himself special, but simply believed he had been given the sight, that once given, it came with responsibility. And then there was Robert. When his younger brother died in 1787, Blake was at his bedside. He watched the life fade from his brother's eyes, felt his final breath, and stayed with the body long after the room fell silent. But the silence didn't last. Days later, Robert returned in radiant clarity. Blake said Robert's spirit had appeared to him and revealed something extraordinary, a method of combining text and image.
It's so interesting to like because if you really look at some of the greatest geniuses throughout history, Carl Jung was somebody who got visions through his dreams and had epiphanies out of nowhere. James Joyce is the same way. James Joyce would have epiphanies all the time, and it would lead him to be one of the most famous authors of all time. Nikola Tesla, in an interview, he got some award. I wish I remember what award it was, but you can look this up on YouTube. There's a video of it. And he's giving a speech, and he's saying that he would he would have an idea for an invention, and then go to bed, and he would wake up, and then his journal would be full of everything he needed to do, and he would follow the steps, and then he would create the invention. It's like one of the weirdest things ever. And it's like there seems to be like this uncanny um kind of characteristic to everyone that kind of leaves their mark in the world in such way. And there's some divine revelation, some divine inspiration that comes to them. It's very weird how you see it over and over again.
Of etching words.
And I'm sure there's a lot of stories that we don't know because people didn't want to be seen as out there. Like a lot of the stuff we know about Jung's like spiritual life, like we get little inklings of it, but you don't get the extent of it until, in fact, 10 years ago, 50 years after his death, when the Red Book was published.
words and illustrations onto copper plates using acid and ink, a technique no one else in the world was using, a form of spiritual technology. Blake called it illuminated printing, and from that moment forward, every prophecy, every warning, every revelation would be delivered through it. Handcrafted, carved, inked, pressed, and
There's versions you can get of Blake's writing that has the drawings. I like his words more than his drawings, honestly. And I think whenever you get this kind of stuff, I can't read it. Like unfortunately, like I'm very bad at reading cursive, but if it's just normal print, like it's just a lot easier to read, and this ink is like copied from somewhere else. So I don't tend to buy the versions that are like this, but you can definitely get versions like this of his work. Nothing weird about it. Tesla was obsessed with his ideas. He probably dreams about it. Tesla, when he was young, had like fever dreams for like weeks straight, and they thought he was gonna die. And out of nowhere, he got over that, and all of a sudden, he had like mystic or psychic like intuition. It's very weird. Like Tesla vehemently opposed like any sort of like weird out there ideas about spirits and God and stuff like that. And it's so funny because he literally had psychic like powers. It's so funny because he literally used those sorts of same influences for his inventions and didn't even realize it. Tesla's an interesting person. It sucks that there's very few people that are that level of intelligent that seem to be somewhat not selfish. Um, and Tesla basically ruined himself because he didn't do what is it Rockefeller? Yeah, I think it was Rockefeller. Rockefeller basically wanted him to create some sort of invention, but instead of creating that invention, he created free energy. And Rockefeller's like, "This is amazing. How do we put a meter on this and charge people?" He's like, "I didn't do this to charge people. I did this to give everyone free electricity." And they destroyed his invention and destroyed all his work and slandered his name and kind of pushed him out of the respected scientific community, and he died basically penniless. And like there's a quote for him, and he's like, "I gave my entire life to humanity and they rejected me." It's actually like a very 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 sad story because it's like the one benevolent guy that should have that could have changed the world and he didn't.
coloured by Blake himself. To the outside world, it was invention, a novel blend of poetry and painting. To Blake, it was divine instruction. There was no distinction between what he saw with his eyes and what he saw with his spirit. Both were real, but only one demanded obedience. The world of vision, of imagination, was foundational. He didn't argue, he obeyed. To Blake, imagination was a form of perception, a way of accessing truths that the physical world concealed. His contemporaries drew maps of nature and built systems of thought. Blake received visions from something older than scripture, speaking in fire, in wings, in light.
And like I feel like I have to reiterate this, but there's something in these drawings that's so unique. It's a style that's unlike anything else that I've ever seen. The same thing would happen in today's day and age. Yeah, it's crazy. There's I don't remember what it's called, but there's some sort of patent law in the United States where if you come up with some sort of technology that can have military applications, they just rip the patent from you and they take all of your your data, and they just I don't know if they even have to compensate you for it. I don't even know if it's like eminent domain where they have to pay you what the technology's worth. And these drawings were made by Blake himself. Yeah, they all were. He would engrave them on like metal plates. I think some of them he drew, and a lot of them he engraved on metal plates. And before Blake died, he became obsessed with Dante's Inferno, and he taught himself uh, I cannot think of it. Italian to he taught himself Italian so he could read Dante's original writing, and then he began engraving plates of all of the scenes in Dante's Inferno, or not even Dante's Inferno, the Divine Comedy in general. And he didn't get to finish it before he died, but he got a lot of it done. So you can look those up too. He's very, very talented.
And when they spoke, he carved their words into copper, as if the very act of etching them into the world could hold the veil open a little longer. Blake invented gods to warn, and the first of them was Urizen, his answer to the question, what happens when reason goes too far?
So this, I guess you could call it deity. Like Blake created his own mythos for his writing, and I don't know if he actually believed they were real, believed they were forces, or just used them as personification. I'm going to go on the idea that they were personifications because in the marriage of heaven and hell, Blake says something along the lines of the Greeks once gave human characteristics to the facets of nature so that they could better understand them, so that they could better define them and talk to them. And priests told them that they had to worship them. So he's really saying that like the Greeks, what's Apollo's the sun god? They started calling the sun Apollo, and then a priest came along and said, "I know the true words, and you have to worship him, and you have to do this, and you have to give offerings and bow down and all sorts of." And Blake thought that this was really against what the original purpose was. The original purpose was to kind of tell stories about it and explain how it worked through, think of like a fable. Think of like how the Aesop's fables, where the animals have characteristics, and you can kind of learn about different character traits, and you kind of associate these character traits with animals, and that's why we call somebody a rat or we call somebody a pig, or you know, oh, that person's an animal. Like, we give these animal-like characteristics to human beings for that reason.
Urizen is the god of logic, laws, and control.
So don't think of this as like black and white law and order. It's also like your own thoughts. It's also like your own conventions, the things that you do, not because you want to do them, but the things that are pushed upon you. Like think about your life and think about the decisions you make and how many of the decisions you make on a daily basis are for you or are for someone else, are because you went to school because people told you to go to school, but you really don't want it. You really didn't want to. You took a job because you thought it would make people value you, but you hate it. You bought a car that was outside your price range, but you wanted to look cool, but it really isn't up to snuff. It really isn't what you wanted. You're living a life that is completely bounded by other people's lives. That's your isn't. That's the idea of law. That's the idea of you must do things this way because these are the ways that it's done. You have to do something in this way. You have to live your life in this way. You have to follow the pack. You have to be like everyone else. That's really what Blake is defining this as. It's not necessarily um, just worldly things. It's everything and everything. It's anything that will prevent you from being everything that you should be or can be.
But not the kind that liberates. His reason confines. In Blake's mythos, Urizen is the one who breaks from unity, declares himself creator, and draws a boundary around infinity. He charts the cosmos with compass and rule, forges laws out of fear, and builds a throne upon separation. He creates the material world not as a gift, but rather a prison, a world locked into systems of morality, obedience, and punishment.
Think about like if you've ever read the Bible, it's very, very inspiring. It's very, very freeing. It almost gives you this idea that if you carry yourself in a certain way, that your life will be perfect. But then you go to church and then there's all these morals and dogmas, and I'm not trying to cite Albert Pike. I don't know why I said that in that way. I was like, right after I said that, I'm like, why am I mentioning that book? But um those sorts of set beliefs, those sorts of set ways of doing things that you're bad because of this, you're this, you're this, you're this, you're like, isn't one of the fundamental teachings of Christ that he who hath no sin cast the first stone? It's like, how dare you judge others before you judge yourself? Because you're not God, you're not perfect. So to impart your judgments onto anyone else is not right.
A place where vision is chained to the senses and imagination is mocked as madness. Urizen claims to be righteous. He speaks in commandments, he punishes desire, he binds the soul with books and bars. But Blake never paints him as evil for its own sake. Urizen believes he's right.
Think of the people that are like, yeah, we have to go into this other country and do a preemptive strike. Like, it sounds so funny to say. It's like, oh, this war is actually self-defense because we knew they were going to attack us, so we attacked them first. It's like, in those people's heads, they actually believe that. And that's the same kind of belief here. It's somebody that can't see the wrong, somebody that isn't doing it because they're evil. They're doing it because they think it's the right thing to do. And that's what Blake's speaking to.
That's what makes him dangerous. He mistakes control for clarity. He calls fear wisdom, chains freedom, and all the while, he insists there is no other way. Urizen was Blake's rejection of the God he saw rising in the world around him, a God made in the image of cold Enlightenment rationalism, of Newton's mechanical universe, of church dogma weaponized for obedience. Blake looked at the Old Testament's laws, the church's condemnations, and the scientific worldview that stripped the heavens of angels and called it progress.
There's this Nietzsche quote. It's so weird how Nietzsche has like a lot of carryover with a lot of stuff Blake says, a lot of stuff Gurdjieff says. Like for somebody who was supposedly so against all of these sort of metaphysical principles and the idea of a god and all sorts of stuff like that, like there are a lot of these carryovers that I find myself always citing. But Nietzsche has this quote, and it was Jesus was the last Christian. And what he's really saying here is that Jesus was the last person who actually followed the teachings of Christ, and everyone after there started worshiping him and started idolizing him and not doing what he said, which is, he gave us the Ten Commandments are just they don't mean anything because Jesus came back and said, love no other God and treat everybody as they're you. Treat everybody as if they were yourself. It's like people don't follow those two precepts. It's so funny. But uh, that's really what Blake is saying. Blake's saying something very similar to Nietzsche. It's so funny that I don't know if Nietzsche would ever agree with Blake.
He answered with Urizen. Urizen would go on to feature in many of Blake's works, always reshaping the cosmos in his own image. And each time, the world he built grew smaller, more rigid, more broken. He is the architect of reality severed from the divine, where law replaces love, where the imagination is no longer sacred.
Okay, so before he explains Blake's God of imagination, I want you to think of it this way, like in your head, if you think there's only one solution, then you're only going to find the ways to get to that solution. Whereas if you believe there's another path, where as if you disregard convention, disregard the way things are done, you open yourself up to new possibilities. You open yourself up to new avenues. But if you already have it set in your mind, like the way to be successful is to go to college and then get a job and then save and do all these things, like you limited yourself. I'm not saying that's not the wrong path. I'm not saying it's not I can't make you happy, but it's like if you believe there's only one way to do something, you've already missed the point. You've already missed your greatest facet to yourself, which is your imagination. If you really work on your imagination, if you really work on the, the power of pulling thoughts from nowhere, you have $1 billion idea. You have something that could change the world, and it's something that no one else has thought of because nobody else is you. And that's why I will always talk about creativity. That's why I always talk about imagination. Because as my imagination has gotten stronger, I've been able to exercise more and more control over my life. I've been able to get past problems that I used to struggle with. I was able to change the way I viewed myself. I was able to change the way that the world viewed me because I was no longer bounded by the person who I was, the person who I didn't necessarily like in all aspects of myself. And how do you go about changing yourself? How do you go about faking it till you make it? How do you go about convincing yourself that you're something completely different? It's through your imagination. It's through your imagination and faith in that imagination. That's the two. That's really the cheat code to life is that if you could believe that you're good enough to do something and disregard the external circumstances and keep going, you might try and fail thousands of times, millions of times. But if you succeed, who cares? Who cares how many times you failed if you win? That's that's the thing that people don't always get into their head is that you don't see the defeats that other people face. You don't see how many missed shots that Michael Jordan had. I promise you, he had so many more missed shots than he had made shots, and only after missing so many shots was he able to make them. It's just it's trial and error. It's try and fail. It's learn from my mistakes. It's constantly get better. It's constantly move forward with that same vision, with that same imagination, and reliance on that imagination that will bring you to where you want to go. Sorry to get sidetracked.
Just inconvenient. And Blake, for all his quietness, was at war with him. If Urizen is the builder of prisons, then Los is the one who dares to break them. Los is William Blake's answer to one question. What can save us? Not armies, law.
What's up, Zachariah? How's everything? Los is just the imagination. That's all it is. Think of it as the god of imagination, whatever you want to think. Again, these are just personifications of ideas that Blake uses for example. Like I use certain terms to represent certain ideas in my writing. If you read it enough, you'll get the gist of what I'm trying to say. Maybe I should use these sorts of personifications because they're very useful. But
Laws or reason, but imagination. Los is the eternal artist, the spirit of creative fire, divine madness, and unchained vision. Where Urizen draws lines and closes doors, Los opens them. Los isn't just the opposite of Urizen. He's his shadow, his rival, his jailer. When
think of like what's the two gods in Zoroastrianism? I know Zoroaster one. I don't know. I don't know nearly enough to speak of it, but it's this Blake sort of has this Heraclitus idea of yin and yang of push and pull. I think Khalil Gibran put it best. Every sorrow deepens your joy. That sort of idea of without pain, you can't experience pleasure. And like you need sort of that other aspect, that negative aspect to appreciate the positive. And there's this kind of give and take to life that creates anything, that creates any purpose, that creates any meaning. You're doing great. Yeah, I can't complain. Um, damn, why are you having such a good day?
Urizen breaks away
What's going on? You get some good
from
news?
eternity and builds his cold, ordered world, it's Los who follows him, to contain. He forges time itself as a kind of chain, wrapping Urizen in the ticking moments to stop his spread. But in doing so, he too becomes bound by what he creates. This is Blake's tragedy. Even imagination, when cut off from the eternal, can become mechanical. Los, the liberator, finds himself shaping the very world he meant to fight. The hammer in his hand creates art, but also industry. Vision can harden.
Think of this idea of like somebody creates a company, it's very innovative, and then bureaucracy sets in, and then it kind of starts resting on its laurels, and it no longer is the same force in the industry that it once was. Think of like the movie industry. It's kind of going through that phase where, they have to pay the actors so much. There's so much behind the scenes stuff that they have to do. They have so many investors now that they can't they can't insult whatever brand, they can't insult this country, they can't insult this person. They can't take any risk. They can't upset their shareholders. They have to please the shareholders and please the customers at the same time. And of course it's going to fail. And you think of things of like The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. It's like a movie that you could watch and it's just as good as the day it came out. And now you look at a movie that comes out today and you can't even watch it on the day of release. The day's been kind of whack actually. I had a busy day at work and then some tax stuff. Trying to trick myself into a good mood. Well, I'm sorry I had to remind you. No, I mean that's the right way to think about it. That's the right way to go through thing. It's like your life could be a whole lot worse. Like I hate to like be the person that says that all the time. I feel like it's so redundant, and I feel like anyone can say it, but it really is true. It's like, you know, if you don't like your shoes, there's somebody with no feet. Like you can always find somebody that has it worse than you. You could always be in a worse situation, and it's like, why dwell on the negative when you could think about the positive? Like imagine if the saddest person in the world could spend as much time thinking about the good things in their life as they do think about the bad things. Like, do you think that person would be as sad? And I genuinely don't think they would. I think it's just easier to think about the bad things, but the good things are just as apparent. You just have to look. It could be like you're suffering from success.
Into repetition, inspiration can fossilize into system, creation becomes labor, the artist becomes a machine. And yet, Blake never loses.
Think of art today. Think of how boring it is. Think of how redundant it is. Something you see in art today, and this is a big critique that people don't put their like nobody talks about this, but the hero or archetypes in general have been deconstructed so much that they're deconstructing the deconstructions, and there's nothing to even oppose. And this is why art sucks so much, is because it's all postmodern, and the hero's already been killed. The archetypes have already been destroyed. Nobody knows what to look for. Nobody knows what a good person is anymore. Nobody has any sort of good sort of icons or sort of ideas about things. And this is why like simple stories are doing so well now. Like think of like what is it, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Very simple story. There's a good guy, there's bad guys. The good guy wins. You know the good guy's gonna win, and everyone loved it. And it's like we're almost in this like the inklings of some sort of regeneration, the inklings of some sort of rebirth. You can start to see a lot of people are fed up with like the nothingness of art. And that's a very good sign. It's hard to be positive in a negative environment. I mean, it is, but I mean, it can be done. I mean, you could always make your situation a little bit better. You could always understand your situation's not permanent. Um, but yeah, I've been in bad environments before. I've been in places I didn't like, and it definitely is difficult. It definitely is, especially when you can't like sit down and just have time to yourself without being annoyed. It's very difficult, but no, you get over it. Wonder why we're not hardwired to notice the good things and only focus on the bad. Well, I mean, think about it this way, like we used to have to like go and fight and kill stuff, and like there's that need for the anxiousness, that need for the fight or flight that keeps us worried about predators and stuff. So do you think it's just, to me, it's just like that, just misplaced onto worldly sort of responsibilities? You know what I mean? It's hard to be negative in a positive environment. There we go, X before Y Z, turning on its head. I think good things are taken for granted and bad things evoke more emotion. Well, yeah, for sure. But I think there's something to it about like, the early hunters had to be so on edge about stuff. And there's certainly something in it where like we had to watch out for predators. We had to, oh, I'm hungry. I gotta do this. I gotta do this. I gotta like. There's something about the mind, like always having to be somewhat on these things, and then you couple that with like all the problems in the world. Like I think it's just kind of replaced that, and then these are hollow problems that they really don't have any solution to, so it makes it difficult.
His faith in him, because for all his struggle, Loss still burns with purpose. He's the only figure in Blake's myth who works toward redemption. He weeps, he toils, he builds to restore. In Blake's view, imagination was sacred, the only faculty that could pierce the illusion of reality and reach something higher. To imagine was to remember the truth before it was forgotten. It
To imagine is to remember the truth before it's forgotten.
meant breaking through
That's
the
such a good
lies
way
of
of explaining
empire,
it.
dogma, and cold rationality and touching the infinite again. Without imagination, man becomes a cog in someone else's machine. But with it, he becomes something else entirely. A creator, a prophet, a flame.
So there's something in this that every single mystic, every single great philosopher, every single great mind that I've studied, all come to this conclusion. I don't know how I butchered conclusion. All came to this conclusion that creativity is the highest ideal. That creative expression is the greatest aspect of humanity. Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, Jung, Freud, Osho, Blake, Dante, Emerson. I don't see any more books in front of me. Uh, I think that's good enough. I know there's a name that I'm missing that like very much agrees with what I just said, but I can't think of them off the top of my head, and they're probably long dead, so I'm sorry. Rolling in
Loss
their
is
grave
not
right now. Walt Whitman's probably pissed at me.
perfection. He fails and suffers, but he is the one figure who dares to dream in a world that's forgotten how. And in that act, he becomes Blake's true hero. According to Blake, the human soul was never meant to be divided. It was once a whole, a unified being of vision, instinct, reason, and wisdom. But something broke, a fall not just from grace, but from within.
Think of like Jung's idea of the shadow or Freud's idea of the conscious, unconscious. I forget Freud's terms for it.
And that fall scattered the
I'm guessing conscious, unconscious. There's this like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde sort of idea about things. It's very essential to humanity. Like whenever you start studying any sort of like spirituality or Eastern sort of mysticism or any sort of these like ideas, there's always this well accepted belief that like there's a true self and a self that you purport to the world. And the self that the world sees is not really you. And because you're not being you in your day-to-day life in each and every moment, you're unhappy. And that if you were closer to this real self, if you were individuated, as Jung would say, you'll be divinely inspired. Shadow work, yeah. I mean, I'm not using those words because it's just in everything. Like Gurdjieff, just self-remembering. Like there's a billion terms you could say and use for these sorts of ideas. And I really just think they're like old recycled ideas that people have interesting insights on each. That's why I study so many different people because I don't think you could get the truth from one person. I think you have to kind of combine it and make it your own.
soul.
But like, don't get too obsessed with names. Don't get too obsessed with ideas and set beliefs and ideology because they're all just you can get them from anywhere. This is something Freud said. He said that poets understand the psyche far better than I ever could. Something along the lines of that.
Into four powers, four beings, four Zoas. We've already met two of them, Urizen, the architect of control, and Los, the struggling spirit of imagination. But the other
So this is a different work that I haven't read yet. Um, I don't know why I haven't read it yet. I like reading different things, so it's like I won't sit down if I have like a like I have Blake's his whole collection. It's like this big, and I have not sat down and read each and everything yet. It's something I always tell myself, oh, I'm gonna read some more Blake, but I never do it. Just because there's so much shit to study, there's so many different things to go over, and I feel like I can't get enough of different ideas. That's my favorite thing to do is just read different ideas and compare them and contrast them and get really the insights that all of these people that I respect share. I think that's the most fun thing to do in reading.
To complete the picture. The first is Tamas, the Zoa of instinct, sensation, and the physical body. He represents the raw experience of being alive, hunger, desire, pain, fear.
Gurdjieff has this same sort of idea. Uh, the four bodies of man. I forget what they are. It's like instinct, mind, emotion, and body, something like that. Again, these ideas are so analogous to other ideas. It's like that's why I always say like don't get obsessed with like the things it's called, compare it to other things, and grasp the truth and the similarities from this other stuff.
He's the flesh without filter, the beast within man, but also the grounding force that connects soul to world. When balanced, Tamas is the root of vitality. When fractured, he becomes the source of anxiety, lust, and disconnection. The
Oh, so it does talk about anxiety. I think you're instinctually bound to these sorts of emotions, and they get expressed through uh your worldly responsibilities. What's his name? I don't know if anyone studied Dr. Joe Dispenza. He has some stuff that I agree with and some stuff I'm like not that interesting, but something really interesting he says in his book Becoming Supernatural. I don't think I've talked about that book in a very long time. But and the only reason I don't talk about him is because I think Neville says everything that he says in a much more inspiring way. I think Blake says everything he says in a much more inspiring way. Basically, his shtick is that he is bringing science to spirituality and trying to prove these things scientifically, which I think is the dumbest way of doing it because you can't explain the spirit through rationality, and you'll never win over that kind of audience. But hey, if it makes people's lives better, then I'll for it. I have beef with him though because was streaming to like five people, and it was one of his videos, and I was explaining his videos, and I was going like it would be like 10 minutes on every point, like every 30 seconds we had 10-minute explanation. And I was like getting copyrighted. I had to stop watching the video. I was like, "What? This is the dumbest thing ever." But I get it. Some people don't like people reacting to their videos. I don't see an issue with it. I mean, as long as you're not like just stealing it, I think it's fine. But his big point that I took away from him was that you're addicted to feeling negative thoughts. You're addicted to these negative emotions. You're addicted to obsessing about deadlines. You're addicted to staying up late. Like these negative emotions, you do them so much that your body feels like it wants more of them. I feel like I'm butchering the point, but like think of somebody that sees the world through pessimism. It's a habit. It's something that they're accustomed to do. So whenever they view the world, they're going to see it in that lens. And think of an optimist. Whenever they see the world through an optimistic lens, they're going to see the good things. They're going to see the things that benefited them. They're going to see the things that are going right for them. And it's that sort of idea of things. It's like you're feeling these things because you're addicted to these feelings. It's because you tell your body through your responses that these things are important. And the less you start giving attention to these things, the less they stop bothering you. Like I don't deal with nearly even close the same amount of anxiety that I used to deal with. And it's because I don't really give it credit anymore. Like I don't get in my own head when I start thinking something negative and saying, well, this happened and this happened and this happened. Like if I have a negative thought, I just it doesn't phase me at all in the same way. Addictions are easy to start and difficult to end. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's easier. It's way easier said than done. Any routine is hard to break at, even a shit one, especially a shit one sometimes. Yeah, because the problem with like bad routines is what is a bad routine? You're taking the easy way out. And the more you take the easy way out, the harder it is to take the good way out. You know, you've been afraid of heights your entire life, so you've never faced that fear. And now it's become to the point where you can't even walk up a set of stairs. You know, like, you know what I mean? It's like we have these debilitating fears that we run away from. We have these debilitating habits that we keep feeding and feeding and feeding. And the more we feed that debilitating habit, the harder it is to face that good thing. You know what I mean? Like I feel like we can all pinpoint that time where we started scrolling on our phones and we thought it was the greatest thing ever. Now when I scroll on my phone, I put my phone down and I feel worse about it because I do it. And it's like I'm doing that because when I'm bored, it's the easiest thing I can do. Instead of picking up a book, instead of going on a walk, instead of meditating, instead of thinking good thoughts or writing or being creative or doing anything else. Literally sitting there banging my head against the wall is better than scrolling on my phone, but I do it anyway. And it's like it's it's like it's very frustrating at a certain point. Anyway,
Second
we'll keep
is
going.
Urthona, the Zoa of wisdom and insight, more than imagination, more than intellect. He is inspiration in its purest form, the flame behind prophecy and poetry. When whole, he allows the soul to see beyond the material, but when he falls, he becomes closed off, retreating into shadow and silence.
Think of people that are very my way or the highway, very incapable of creative thought, very incapable of any sort of expression. You know, people that play by the rules are usually the most boring people to have conversation with because they don't allow themselves to even think different thoughts, even say something that is not correct, even have an idea or hold a belief that isn't widely accepted. Sometimes fear is a good thing. Yeah, fear is a good thing. Like, I don't want to stand in front of somebody when they're firing a gun. Like, I mean, there's some fears that are rational. There's some fears that are like, yeah, I don't want to jump off a building without a parachute. Like, there's good facets of fear. There's good things that can come from fear, but there's also like the irrational fears, like, oh, well, I can't put myself out there. I can't put my foot in the door. I can't go out there. What are people going to say about me? Like, how are people going to judge me? Like, those are the fears that you need to face. I'm not saying if you're afraid of heights, you got to go on a roller coaster. Like, it's being afraid of heights isn't debilitating to your life unless you live in a skyscraper. But like, for most people, there's so many little fears that we have. There's so many little things that we've always wanted to do that we never do. I have a friend. I don't know if he's more of an acquaintance, but like I know this guy, and for like 5 years he's been telling me he wants to train jujitsu, and he still hasn't fucking done it. It's like, dude, I'm almost probably a purple belt, and I'll get my black belt before this guy has even started. And it's like all you have to do is show up to one class. All you have to do is go once and see if you even like it or not. But he hasn't even done that yet. And it's one of the saddest things you can ever do because it's defeating yourself before you even tried. Defeating yourself before you even gave it an attempt. You know, like think about like how many people have like died and had dreams and they never even knew if they were good enough because they didn't try. Like if I'm not good enough to accomplish everything I want to do, I'm gonna go out swinging. I'm gonna die on my sword. I'm going to go out there and put my all into it. And if I failed, as Teddy Roosevelt said, failed while daring greatly. That's the only way you can do it. For example, in the Stone Age, if we didn't have fear of animals like mountain lions, we would never become successful. Yeah, I mean, I think there's like when I talk about face your fears, I'm talking about like obviously things that you've been avoiding. I'm not saying to go fight a mountain lion. Like my jujitsu coach, his dad has this saying. He always says it. It's one of the best sayings I've ever heard, and it's everything in moderation, even moderation. I think that sums up life perfectly. Is that we could talk about face your fears and this and that. There's some things you shouldn't do. There's some things you know you shouldn't do. Never take anything I say as a blanket statement because there's no such thing as a rule without an exception. I mean, have you ever read Kafka's The Trial? Should we do an entire stream on the trial, which is basically about how bureaucracy can get you if they really want you?
Los, the artist smith, is actually the fallen form of Euthona, struggling to remember the fire he once carried. Together, these four forces form the architecture of both the cosmos and the individual soul. Urizen rules reason, Los rules imagination, Thanos governs the body, Urthona speaks through insight. In their perfect state, they coexist in harmony, the full spectrum of what it means to be human.
Think about like when there's no good examples of like whole people. Don't ask people's age in the chat, dude. It's a very never tell anyone your age on the internet. One, and two, never ask your age because it's just don't answer that. But uh, there's too many weird people to get into that kind of stuff. Um, I lost my train of thought. When you think of like a whole person, think of somebody that's like doesn't really concern themselves with things that don't matter, that is guided by some sort of purpose, that's guided by some sort of bigger idea or bigger principle. I think they really only exist in fiction. That's the sad reality of it, unless we're talking about like enlightened souls, which anybody can claim to be enlightened. Technically, you're good. I'm just I don't want to like, you know what I mean? I just rather be safe than
But
sorry.
Blake believed this harmony had been shattered. The fall wasn't an event in Eden, but a cosmic catastrophe within every person. Each Zoa turned against the others. Reason declared itself king. Imagination became fragmented.
I don't really like moderate my chat that much. I shouldn't say that. Obviously, I have a lot of mods, so like if something's that crazy, but like as long as you're not like doing anything insane, but like just I'd rather be on the safe side. You know what I mean? Because it's like you don't know with people, and it's like these streams they're a lot better because it's titled William Blake, so it's not just gonna send it to people that are like I don't even want to say like dumb, but it's just like if I do the other kinds of streams, literally somebody that's no interest in anything I have to say is gonna come there just try to mess with me. Just say like weird shit. So it's like those streams I have to be more careful of, but these ones I really don't think anybody that is interested in William Blake is gonna do or say anything that's crazy. But that's just my perspective on things.
The body
Yeah, no, it's a good chat. Like I feel like everyone's saying stuff that's interesting. Like if I do the vertical live streams, it's just it's good. It gets me subscribers. It gets me an algorithm, lots of watch time. It's just so annoying because everyone's like, "Oh, you look like Mr. Clean." It's like I haven't heard that 1,000 times. Like, dude, like if you're gonna make ball jokes, just please come up with something original because I will laugh. Like I promise you, if it's funny, I will laugh. Like Norm Macdonald's my favorite comic. It doesn't even have to be funny, and I'll laugh. Genuinely, just the idea of making fun of me is funny to me. Like I don't know what it is. I don't take myself too serious. Like so it's like that, but it's like I can only hear the same joke so many times before it just gets like old. And I'm like, I don't want to explain that to people. You know what I mean? it's like I feel like people bullying me on the internet has just given me so much confidence in real life because it's like uh, like how many like I know people look at me and think I'm bald, so it's like I've heard it on the internet 1,000 times, so like I know what you guys are thinking, and I've just accepted it. Like
Body grew ashamed. Wisdom withdrew. The soul collapsed inward, and the world became material. This is the true
by the way, this video is so good. I have to say it again. I said at the beginning of the video that I really enjoyed it when I watched it the first time, but this is good.
apocalypse in Blake Smith.
I didn't watch I had the audio in my ears because I listened to YouTube at the gym and I just listened to it and I thought it was good, but it's well done. This is the quality of video I could never do because I don't have the attention span for scripting and bringing the images. I don't know. That's just not my style.
Mythos, a soul so divided it can no longer see eternity. What we call reality, Blake saw as the prison built from this fragmentation. And salvation, if it existed, could only come from remembering what we once were and reuniting what had been broken.
It's, like these ideas are so weird because I'm reading Gurdjieff right now, and I literally just read a chapter about self-remembering. Like these, it's so weird how like these mystics or these, I don't know what Gurdjieff's considered, these spiritual people are somewhat echoing the same ideas and they get to them through different revelations. And, Blake has so much carryover with like Gnosticism and what's the other one? Rosicrucianism and other ideas. It's so weird that he came up with a system himself just through sheer, I guess, divine revelation, you call it.
In 1790, William Blake unleashed one of the most radical works of his life, The Marriage of Heaven and Hell.
If you're gonna read one thing by Blake, it's this. It's like 20, 30 pages maybe. It's poetry, so it's only like 6,000 words in total. But it's genuinely I picked it up and I didn't put it down. I literally read it all the way through, and that's something I usually don't do. I read a few pages, put it down, walk away. Like I don't read in long sessions. I read in a lot of spurts across the day. Like that's how I get my reading done. Read the entire thing, sat down, only wanted to read a few pages, couldn't put it down. It's something special.
Vision carved in contradiction and flame. Written in the voice of the damned, it flipped the script on everything his world held sacred. Blake saw the universe as a tension between two necessary forces, one that constructs and one that disrupts. Heaven, in his eyes, was the realm of restraint, order, and cold virtue. It spoke in commandments and demanded.
Think of uh think of Khalil Gibran's idea of every sorrow deepens your joy. Like there's some necessity for pain in order for you to experience any sort of good, because it's that yin yang that gives any sort of meaning. You know, you can't appreciate the good times if you didn't have the bad times, that sort of thing. And a section of the Marriage of Heaven and Hell is titled The Proverbs of Hell. And Blake he does this in jest because he knows that, you know, if somebody from the church read it, they would be like, "This is so awful." But there's such truth in these sayings that you can't help but get to the bottom of it. And you know, there's a lot of things that he says in them. The one that's sticking out to me the most is something along the lines of like, in order to renounce wealth, you must be wealthy. Because it's like until you experience something, you don't know that you don't want it. That's the easiest way to explain what I'm saying.
Submission. Hell, by contrast, was alive with energy, imagination, and desire. It burned with rebellion, passion, and the power to create. Blake didn't see these as moral opposites, but as equal parts of human nature. To separate them was to cripple the soul. He described this fusion through paradox, that real wisdom begins in excess, that energy is the source of delight, that without friction there can be no movement. These ideas were crystallized in what he called the Proverbs of Hell, short, enigmatic phrases that read like scripture from another world.
Maybe one day I'll go through all of them. It's actually a good idea for a stream. I'll put them together and read some of the interesting ones. I don't know if people would be interested in that though, because I feel like this is the best mix of entertainment and education that I can do. Um, but I could definitely go into each and every line and the importance of it. And
The road of excess leads to the palace of wisdom.
this is the quote I was trying to say. I hate that he just used the exact one.
Prisons are built with stones of law, brothels, and bricks of religion.
Prisons are built with stones of law, brothels with bricks of religion. It's like that Nietzsche quote from The Will to Power, which is all morality is contradictory. How did you get your freedom? You had to go to war. What what makes you right? What makes the other person that lost the war wrong? Like that sort of idea of things. It's that there's something hypocritical in all forms of you must do this, you must do this, you must. There's some projection that is in any sort of morality.
You never know what is enough unless you know what is more than enough. Exuberance is beauty. These were designed to expose the lies buried beneath conventional virtue. Blake believed that what society called holy was often dead inside, and what it called sinful might carry the fire of truth. In The Marriage of Heaven and Hell,
And the true genius of Blake here is he's doing what Jung described in his Red Book as going to the depths of hell to confront your unconscious in order to bring it to the light. And what that means is Blake sees a lot of the dogma and the doctrines of church and rules and laws as somewhat contradictory to human nature. And we're denying our own humanity and we're punishing our own humanity and we're punishing an aspect of ourselves. And because we're punishing an aspect of ourselves, it only becomes stronger. Opposition strengthens whatever idea you're opposing. I mean, a very easy example is think of politics. The stronger somebody rages against one side, the stronger the other side has to push back in order for their voice to be heard. And it's a never ending escalation of intensity.
Angels lecture, devils reply. A dialogue unfolds between order and imagination, between elimination and liberation. And Blake, standing between both, doesn't choose sides. He weds them. He insists that creation itself depends on their union. The book is a reclamation, a reminder that divinity doesn't live only in obedience, but also in rage, in lust, in...
Think of original sin. Like original sin is seen as a bad thing, but original sin is in fact what makes anything worthwhile. If everything was handed to you, wouldn't you get bored? But because you're imperfect, you can strive to be perfect. If you were perfect, there's no free will. And if there's no free will, then is there any meaning to what you're doing? Are you giving to charity because it makes you look good in the community and you get tax breaks, or are you doing charity out of the goodness of your heart? There's nothing behind it. There's no like if you were forced to do something good your whole life, then it's there's nothing. But if you had the option to do good or bad and you do good, then that's more noble.
creativity and in contradiction. Where others saw hell as a pit, Blake saw it as a forge, where the soul is awakened. Ink, copper, and fire. These were the tools Blake used to deliver his visions. His art wasn't secondary to his poetry, it was part of the message. Each piece formed a visual scripture crafted to transmit something eternal, and his method, illuminated printing, was dictated by the visions themselves. This technique, revealed to him by the spirit of his dead brother Robert,
I don't know if anyone else has done this since either. I Maybe there is. I haven't seen anything similar to Blake's writings.
allowed him to fuse word and image on the same copper plate. The words were handwritten in reverse using acid-resistant liquid. Images were drawn directly around them, all in a single unified act. The plate was then etched with acid, inked, printed by hand, and painstakingly coloured. The process was slow and solitary, but it gave him complete control over format, sequence, tone, and texture. Every copy was different. Every page was personal. Through this, Blake created prophetic books like America, Europe, Milton, and Jerusalem. He believed they were
I think Jerusalem is essentially about the old word for England is Albion. Um, and Albion means the sleeping giant, either giant or sleeping giant. I can't remember. But essentially, Jerusalem is Blake's attempt to reawaken the spirit of man in England and bring about a new world through imagination.
revelations
It's so out there though. It's not something you can understand, but it's something that when you read, you can get little tidbits from. But it reads like something that's prophetic, so you really can't make sense of a lot of it, but it's very similar to like Ulysses or the Red Book or something that's intentionally difficult to understand, any sort of stream of consciousness work like that. And it's astounding. I mean, my thoughts on it, it's like if it helps you good. I mean there's like entire schools of magic based off of that. Like I don't know. I think it's like I, again, I'm not gonna tell you what you need to do. Like if it helps you good. That's my opinion on it. It's not something that like I don't know. It's one of those trends that's like very weird because it's like there's people who have entire pages devoted to telling someone else not to do that. And that's really the reason why I don't talk about that stuff is because it's like it's so cringy to me to like say like, oh, don't you know what I mean? It's like I'm not judging you though, man. I get it. There's definitely something in it, but I just don't talk about it because it to me it's cringe. I don't want to have to tell you not to do that, okay? But like you do you. That's my answer.
dictated by higher beings and filtered through his imagination. Their narratives continued the mythos of Los, Urizen, Orc, and Zoas. The images were events. These figures shift and transform visually across Blake's words, embodying his evolving understanding of the forces that shape the soul. The Ancient of Days is the most famous of these images, but it is just one moment in a sprawling visual theology. The real
I was gonna say whenever you see a video of Blake, whenever you look it up, this is the first image you see usually.
significance is how each image links directly to the mythic engine driving his cosmology. His visuals reveal what language alone cannot express: figures of light writhing in torment, celestial bodies collapsing into form, the very fall of Albion.
Oh, I don't think I've showed you guys this. Almost just knocked over my TV. That would have been great. Not the Canterbury Tales, but I got this from Barnes and Noble. Um, I don't know if this was even a deal, but this is the Divine Comedy, and I wish it was William Blake Strong's, but it's this giant book. It has all the cantos, and they're like they have the drawings in it too. I don't know. I read the Inferno, and I immediately became obsessed with Dante. But Dante's like a subject you can study your whole life and not understand. So it's like it's just so exciting to me to find something that's like the caliber of Dante that I didn't even know about. And that's the most interesting aspect of reading is that like there's an author, there's somebody that wrote something that will speak to your soul and you never even considered reading it. Like I feel like I'm constantly saying that. I feel like I'm constantly discovering people that I'm like, where was this person my whole life? Like Dante's one of them, Borges is one of them, Emerson. When I picked up, I'm like, what is this? Henry David Thoreau with Walden, Kafka, Gibran or Rilke. Um, there's just so many. Like, there's so many people that like just speak to a part of your soul. I do a little research about the retention thing, dude. There's like literal schools of magic that are devoted to it. Masonry calls it the generative. Fuck, I can't say it. Generative principle, and that's what they. I'm not. I don't know what I can and can't. I don't know what's like not I'm not supposed to know, but there's a lot of stuff about it. I mean, the fact that like these esoteric orders are obsessed with it, there's something in it, and there's something with Kundalini as well. Wait, no, Tantra, not Kundalini. There is something with Kundalini, but there's some Tantra to it too. But I haven't like delved into the study of it because I just don't really care that much. Like there's so many things that I find more interesting than that. But there's something there. If you're interested in it, go study it.
made visible in the faces of fractured gods. The art speaks to the eye and the soul at once, bypassing the rational filters Blake so distrusted. For Blake, vision couldn't be confined to a single sense. To truly see, you had to hear, feel, read, and witness all at once. That's why his pages bend time, collapse dimensions, and leave narrative linearity behind. To step into one of Blake's illuminated books is to enter a ritual. Each plate is a threshold, each figure a signal. The art doesn't explain the myth. It is the myth, burning, weeping, on fire.
This guy's voice is like it's so good, and it's so good that he's like covering Blake because this is a very good video. This is like I think this is my favorite video we've ever reacted to. The David Foster Wallace one was up there. I enjoyed that, but this is so good.
Folding,
Subscribe to this guy's channel.
demanding
Great,
surrender.
great work.
Blake never studied the Gnostics. Their ancient scriptures, hidden for centuries, wouldn't be unearthed until decades after his death.
Blake, if you've read any Gnostic texts, which I really haven't read that much, I've read Seven Sermons to the Dead or whatever's in the Red Book. Um, I've studied Gurdjieff. I've studied other people have studied it, so I have a general idea. I think people are too obsessed with these labels and these terms and these sort of things, and I think it's all kind of one similar thread. But Blake reads like any esoteric mystery school, secret society kind of belief of things. Difference is he doesn't try to control the world with it, but that's a whole other issue.
But the parallels are undeniable. The Gnostics believed that the world was not created by the true God, but by a lesser being, a blind craftsman who mistook himself for the source.
I think it's the demiurge. I think it's what it's called. I hate all these stupid fucking terms because it's all the same. It's all the same stuff. It's all just it's all like a play on old occult, even occult at the time of these writings. These were like hidden mysteries that these people kind of tried to craft into a sort of Christian ethos. It's so very stupid.
They called him the Demiurge, a being of arrogance and error who shaped the material
Very similar to the Freemasons believe in a grand architect, the architect that built everything, and then the gods that we know are just interpretations of that. It's all the same stuff.
world a cage. Blake, through his own visions, arrived at the same figure, Urizen, a god of law, of logic, of limitation, not evil for its own sake, but tragically convinced of his own righteousness. Both the Demiurge and Urizen create order by cutting eternity into pieces. They impose structure where there was once freedom and call it salvation. In both systems, the human soul is a fragment.
What I think about the Dan Hooker situation. He lives up to his name. I mean, I just don't really care. It's like, I mean, he was married. That's like the worst part about it. Like, I don't know. Maybe she's okay with it. Who knows? But like, I don't know. If you got kids, your life's not really about you anymore. It's about your kids. So it's like kind of irresponsible to step out. But I don't. Again, it doesn't affect me. So like, I don't. Some of the jokes are funny. Some of them aren't. If you know who Craig Jones is, uh, he's this jujitsu guy, and he posted a photo of him with Dan Hooker, and he's like, "Well, cat's out of the bag," like implying him and Dan were like together. So it was funny. It was a pretty good play on words, but it is what it is. Who cares?
Fragment of something older and higher. The Gnostics called it the divine spark, a piece of true divinity buried in flesh and forgotten.
Yeah, I'm sure his father-in-law is gonna beat up Dan Hooker. Like, I seen that dude like take more damage than anyone else and win a fight, and it's like, how you gonna beat this guy up? Like, you better bring like a bat or something.
Blake saw this as imagination.
Dude, Craig Jones is like, I- he might be the greatest troller I've ever seen. Like, he single-handedly like brings people to like the worst sport ever, which is jujitsu. Like, dude, I train jujitsu and I can't even watch it, and I'm still involved with like all the drama just because of him, because it's just funny. Like, it's just so much trolling from that guy.
The soul's memory of eternity. It was the one part of us that still spoke in symbols, that still recognized beauty as truth and creation as resistance. And then there's a world itself. It was a system of illusions, schools that replaced wisdom with facts, churches that traded vision for dogma, laws that punished desire and called it justice. The Gnostics would have named these forces archons, guardians.
Gnosticism is just a catch-all term. It's like it's like saying esoteric. It's like saying occult. It's like there's like very fundamental teachings to Gnosticism. There's a bunch of different groups of it. So it's like,
Of the lie, agents of the demiurge who keep the soul asleep. But here Blake diverged. Where Gnostic texts often longed for escape, for a return to the source beyond the stars, Blake chose to remain in the fire. His liberator wasn't an angel from outside. It was Los, the eternal.
the imagination is Blake's big idea is that the imagination can get you away from where you are right now. Your imagination has the possibility to do anything, but you're not allowing it to, because you're falling victim to, what's his name, Urizen, however you say it. But essentially, like, I feel like I keep saying the saying, but it's so important. You're defeating yourself before you even start. Before you even try, you tell yourself you can only do the thing this one way. You can only get to this goal through this one solution. Whereas like the true artists or the true creatives of this world, I'll explain creativity, and if it makes sense, it makes sense. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Envision the goal, envision yourself able to do it, and allow your imagination to fill in the gaps. That's what Blake's saying. And if you have a strong imagination, you know exactly what I mean. If you don't, I want you to work on it because it truly is the greatest tool you have in your arsenal. There's people that are smarter than me. There's a lot of people that are smarter. I'm not that smart. There's people that are more gifted than me. There's people that have better, means than me. There's people like there's so many things that people have on me, but what they don't have is my imagination. They don't have my ability to, I guess you would say, divinely inspired, divinely inspired, pull ideas from something higher than my own brain, be able to exceed my own expectations. Like most people don't have that, and that's why I sound smart. I'm not. I promise you, I've never gotten good grades. I never gotten good grades. I never will. I'm a very average student, but I could somewhat compete through my imagination. And that's really what I'm urging you to do is that if you just put a little bit of attention every day to developing your imagination, Lord knows where you could be. If you could, there's something Rockefeller said is that I'm not in any way gifted. Granted, he was backed by the Bank of England, but different story. Um, but it was maybe it was Ford. It was Rockefeller or Ford, but they said something along the lines of, "I'm not better than other people. It's just I'm able to focus on one thing for 10 minutes each day." Doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of energy. It doesn't take a lot of attention. It just takes pure focus for short amount of time to do something that's unimaginable.
Artist, the builder of worlds and breaker of chains. And Blake didn't write of these things as theory. He saw them. He heard them. His revelations came from direct encounter, visions that erupted through his senses and demanded to be carved into copper and ink. So while he may never have read a single Gnostic word, he saw what they saw: a broken cosmos, a sleeping soul.
Blake studied the Bible religiously. Blake studied Dante. Like it, the ideas are all there, and you could see where he got the same sort of formation from. But
He died as he lived, with a vision in his hands. In 1827, William Blake passed away in a small room in London, poor, unknown, still working. He was drawing angels just hours before his death. He told his wife she had been his constant angel, and then, as he'd always predicted, he crossed into the world he had never stopped seeing.
Blake, I don't know if this was specifically what he's drawing, but I mentioned this earlier. For the last few years of his life, he devoted himself to drawing every scene of Dante's Divine Comedy, and maybe those were the angels he was drawing. Maybe, who knows?
In his
I don't even know
lifetime,
how to
he
look
was
that up.
ignored. His poetry sold few copies. His art was admired for its craftsmanship, but dismissed for its content. His mind was a subject of gossip, and his visions were tolerated with polite smiles or whispered about as delusions.
It's so funny too, because it's like, man, if Blake was born in another era, like I don't think his, I think he got lucky that he didn't like whenever you have somebody that's like this kind of screwed on to things and sees the world in this way, like it's very like most people aren't going to believe you, and it's a marvel that we were able to get his writings because like there's a lot of people today that like say stuff and they're like, oh, this, and like they're crazy. They're out there, and they. I hope they get the help they deserve. But like, I'm so happy we got William Blake.
To most, he was just another eccentric scratching away at copper in a darkened studio. Today, Blake is everywhere. His words are taught in school, his paintings hang in museums, his influence stretches across art, religion, psychology, philosophy, and rebellion. He's
I don't even. He's not like because whenever I talk about Blake, the videos do so bad. So I don't think he's like he's obviously known, but like he definitely is very underrated. Like I mean, it depends what style you like, but I put him up there with Dante. I put him up there with Homer. I put him up there with Shakespeare. Like Shakespeare to me, I like Shakespeare, but like it doesn't reverberate in my soul the same way. There's something about Blake. I
He's
don't know.
called a visionary, a mystic, a genius, but always with a quiet asterisk, because the visions are still uncomfortable. We quote him, but we rarely believe him. He didn't just write about heaven and hell, he claimed to walk between them. He said he saw the veil tear and spent his life trying to show us just what lay beyond it, and that's the part we still can't quite digest. We've reframed his messages as poetry, metaphor, madness,
There's a mix of both. It's all the above.
but the alternative is too disturbing to face. But what if he was? What if the world is not what it seems? What if the systems we live under are chains forged by a false creator?
They definitely are. But I don't know if I'd attribute it to a false creator. I don't even know if Blake would, but the systems of the world are control systems. They are. They're not necessarily all malicious. Some of them are meant to be benevolent, but I think any limiting of the soul is limitations on humanity. And I don't think we could get to the place we're meant to get to as a society if we continue under these means. And there needs to be a shift to imagination. There needs to be a shift to higher states of consciousness. I hate saying higher states of consciousness because it sounds like such a cop out, but that's really what it is. But my Gurdjieff's gonna come out right now. False creator topic really interests you? Well, study Gnosticism or study Freemasonry. Um, but this is something Gurdjieff said. Gurdjieff said that like everyone has the capacity to wake up, but man is a machine, and until he knows he's a machine, he can't begin the process of waking up. What if, just what if? I mean, in the Bible, Satan says he's the ruler of this world. So if you want to believe that, I mean, I guess you could run with that, right? Satan says, I'll give you everything of this world if you jump to Jesus. And Jesus says, no, my kingdom is much greater. Self-development topics interest me. And that's the most fascinating part is that if you read a lot of self-help books, it's just all of these ideas put in dumber ways. Like you could see some of the same principles in like Think and Grow Rich in this book. No, definitely not Satan. I know, well, that's when the Bible says Satan's the ruler of this earth. That's what it says. But or the things of this world, I guess you would say. Not think of like money, wealth, fame, like those sorts of things are controlled by that negative force. That's really what I'm saying.
What if imagination isn't fantasy,
You're talking about the demiurge, which is just no, Gnosticism. Just study Gnosticism. You'll have a lot of fun with that.
but memory? And what if Blake, dismissed as mad, was the only one paying attention? He never begged us to believe him. He didn't ask to be followed. He simply revealed what he saw. And when no one listened, he etched it into copper so it couldn't be erased. Maybe we've called him a madman for so long because the truth he carried would undo us.
Okay, that was a great video. Um, damn, it's 11. I'm gonna stream again tomorrow. I'm probably gonna stream again earlier, so be on the lookout for that. But Yeah, I'll try to find something that's just as good as this. I had a whole lot of fun going through this with you guys, so thank you guys for being awesome, saying a lot of cool things in the chat, and overall just having a good time. I hope you guys have a good rest of your night. I will see you tomorrow, hopefully earlier. No promises. Sometimes I'm bad with my schedule, but yeah, fun video. I'll look for something that's on the quality of this. I had so much fun going through this with you guys. So with that said, peace out. I will catch you in the next one. See you guys tomorrow.